As the last man disappeared, a figure entered the room clad and masked exactly like those who had gone. He removed the long black gown in which he was enveloped, threw the mask from his face, and stood before me, a slender, graceful, bright-looking young man. By the light of the candle I saw him distinctly, and was at once struck by his amiable, cheerful countenance, and my heart pounded with a sudden hope. I had temporarily forgotten the transformation that had been made in my person, which, altogether painless, had left no physical sensation, and thought of myself as I had formerly existed. My soul was still my own, I imagined. My blood seemed unchanged, and must flow as rapidly as before. My strength was unaltered. Indeed, I was in self-consciousness, still in the prime of life. "Excuse me, father," said the stranger, "but my services have been sought as a guide for the first part of a journey that I am informed you intend to take." His voice was mild and pleasant, his bearing respectful, but the peculiar manner in which he spoke convinced me that he knew that, as a guide, he must conduct me to some previously designated spot, and that he proposed to do so was evident, with or without my consent. "Why do you call me father?" I attempted to say, but as the first few words escaped my lips, the recollection of the events of the night rushed upon me, for instead of my own, I recognized the piping voice of an old man I had now become, and my tongue faltered. The sentence was unspoken. "You would ask me why I call you father," I perceived. "Well, because I am directed to be a son to you, to care for your wants, to make your journey as easy and pleasant as possible, to guide you quietly and carefully to the point that will next prove of interest to you." I stood before him a free man, in the prime of life, full of energy, and this stripling alone interposed between myself and liberty. Should I permit the slender youth to carry me away as a prisoner? Would it not be best to thrust him aside, if necessary, crush him to the earth, go forth in my freedom? Yet I hesitated, for he might have friends outside. Probably he was not alone. "There are no companions near us," said he, reading my mind, "and, as I do not seem formidable, it is natural you should weigh in your mind the probabilities of escape. But you cannot evade your destiny, and you must not attempt to deny yourself the pleasure of my company. You must leave this locality, and leave without a regret. In order that you may acquiesce willingly, I propose that together we return to your former home, which you will, however, find no longer to be a home. I will accompany you as a companion, as your son. You may speak, with one exception, to whomever you care to address, may call on any of your old associates, may assert openly who you are, or whatever or whomever you please to represent yourself. Only I must also have the privilege of joining you in the conversation." "Agreed," I cried, and extended my hand. He grasped it, and then by the light of the candle I saw a peculiar expression flit over his face as he added, "To one person only, as I have said, and you have promised, you must not speak. Your wife." I bowed my head, and a flood of sorrowful reflection swept over me. Of all the world, the one whom I longed to meet, to clasp in my arms, to counsel in my distress, was a wife of my bosom, and I begged him to withdraw his cruel injection. "You should have thought of her before. Now it is too late. To permit you to meet and speak with her would be dangerous. She might pierce your disguise. Of all others there is no fear. Must I go with you into an unknown future without a farewell kiss from my little child, or from my babe scarce 3 months old? It has been so ordained." I threw myself on the floor and moaned. "This is too hard for human heart to bear. Life has no charm to a man who is thrust from all he holds most dear, home, friends, family. The men who relinquish such pleasures and such comforts are those who do the greatest good to humanity," said the youth. "The multitude exists to propagate the race as animal progenitors of the multitudes that are to follow, and the exceptional philanthropist is he who denies himself material bliss and punishes himself in order to work out a problem such as it has been ordained that you are to solve. Do not argue further. The line is marked, and you must walk direct." Into the blaze of the old fireplace of that log house, for, although it was autumn, the night was chilly, he then cast his black robe and false face, and, as they turned to ashes, the last evidence of the vivid acts through which I had passed were destroyed. As I lay moaning in my utter misery, I tried to reason with myself that what I experienced was all a hallucination. I dozed and awoke startled, half conscious only, as one in a nightmare. I said to myself, a dream, and slept again. The door of the cabin was open when I awoke. The sun shone brightly, and my friend, apparently happy and unconcerned, said, "Father, we must soon depart on our journey. I have taken advantage of your refreshing sleep, and have engaged breakfast at yonder farmhouse. Our meal awaits us." I arose, washed my wrinkled face, combed my white hair, and shuddered as I saw in a pocket mirror the reflection of my figure, an aged, apparently decrepit man. "Do not be disturbed at your feeble condition," said my companion. "Your infirmities are not real. Few men have ever been permitted to drink of the richness of the revelations that await you, and in view of these expectations, the fact that you are prematurely aged in appearance should not unnerve you. Be of good heart, and when you say the word, we will start on our journey, which will begin as soon as you have said farewell to former friends and acquaintances." I made no reply, but silently accompanied him, for my thoughts were in the past, and my reflections were far from pleasant. We reached the farmhouse, and as I observed the care and attention extended me by the pleasant-faced housewife, I realized that, in one respect at least, old age brought its compensation. After breakfast a man appeared from the farmer's house, driving a team of horses attached to an open spring wagon, which, in obedience to the request of my guide, I entered, accompanied by my young friend, who directed that we be driven towards the village from which I had been abducted. He seemed to know my past life as I knew it. He asked me to select those of my friends to whom I first wished to bid farewell, even mentioning their names. He seemed all that a patient, faithful son could be, and I began to wonder at his audacity, even as much as I admired his self-confidence. As we journeyed onward, we engaged in familiar talk. We sat together on the back seat of the open spring wagon, in full sight of passers, no attempt being made to conceal my person. Thus we traveled for 2 days, and on our course we passed through a large city with which I was acquainted, a city that my abductors had previously carried me through and beyond. I found that my son possessed fine conversational power and a rich mine of information, and he became increasingly interested as he drew from his fund of knowledge and poured into my listening ears an entrancing strain of historical and metaphysical information. Never at a loss for a word or an idea, he appeared to discern my cogitations, and as my mind wandered in this or that direction, he fell into the channel of my fancies and answered my unspoken thoughts, my mind questions or meditations as pertinently as though I had spoken them. His accomplishments for the methods of his perception were unaccompanied by any endeavor to draw me into word expression, made me aware at least that in him I had to deal with a man unquestionably possessed of more than ordinary intellect and education, and as this conviction entered my mind he changed his subject and promptly answered the silent inquiry, speaking as follows: "Have you not sometimes felt that in yourself there may exist undeveloped senses that await an awakening touch to open to yourself a new world, senses that may be fully developed but which saturate each other and neutralize themselves? Quiescent closed circles which you cannot reach, satisfied circuits slumbering within your body and that defy your efforts to utilize them? In your dreams have you not seen sights that words are inadequate to describe, that your faculties cannot retain in waking moments, and which dissolve into intangible nothingness, leaving only a vague, shadowy outline as the mind quickens, or rather when the senses that possess you in sleep relinquish the body to the returning vital functions and spirit? This unconscious conception of other planes of beyond or betwixt, that is neither mental nor material, neither here nor located elsewhere, belongs to humanity in general, and is made evident from the unsatiable desire of men to pry into phenomena latent or recondite that offer no apparent return to humanity. Study in this direction is, at present, altogether of the material plane, but in time to come men will gain control of outlying senses which will enable them to step from the scene into the consideration of matter or force that is now subtle or evasive, which must be accomplished by means of the latent faculties that I have indicated. There will be an unconscious development of new mind forces in the student of nature as the rudiments of these so-called sciences are elaborated. Step by step, as ages pass, the faculties of men will, on the progressive series of evolutions, imperceptibly pass into higher phases until that which is even now possible with some individuals of the purified esoteric school, but which will seem miraculous if practiced openly at this day, will prove feasible to humanity generally and be found in exact accord with natural laws. The conversational method of men whereby communion between human beings is carried on by disturbing the air by means of vocal organs so as to produce mechanical pulsations of that medium is crude in the extreme. Mind craves to meet mind, but cannot yet thrust matter aside, and in order to communicate one with another, the impression one mind wishes to convey to another must be first made on the brain matter that accompanies it, which in turn influences the organs of speech, inducing a disturbance of the air by the motions of the vocal organs, which, by undulations that reach to another being, act on his ear, and secondarily on the earthly matter of his brain, and finally, by this roundabout course, impress the second being's mind. In this transmission of motion there is great waste of energy and loss of time, but such methods are a necessity of the present slow, much obstructed method of communication. There is, in cultivated man, an innate craving for something more facile, and often a partly developed conception, spectral and vague, appears, and the beings feel that there may be for mortals a richer, brighter life, a higher earthly existence than science does not now indicate. Such intimation of a deep play of faculties is now most vivid with men during the perfect loss of mental self, as experienced in dreams which as yet man in the quick cannot grasp, and which fade as he awakens. As mental sciences are developed, investigators will find that the medium known as air is unnecessary as a means of conveying mind conceptions from one person to another, that material sounds and word pulsations are cumbersome, that thought force unexpressed may be used to accomplish more than speech can do, and that physical exertions, as exemplified in motion of matter such as I have described, will be unnecessary for mental communication. As door after door in these directions shall open before men, mystery after mystery will be disclosed and vanish as mysteries to reappear as simple facts. Phenomena that are impossible and unrevealed to the scientist of today will be familiar to the coming multitude, and at last, as by degrees, clever knowledge is evolved, the vocal language of men will disappear, and humanity, regardless of nationality, will, in silence and even in darkness, converse eloquently together in mind language. That which is now esoteric will become exoteric. Then mind will meet mind as my mind now impinges on your own, and, in reply to your unuttered question regarding my apparently unaccountable powers of perception, I say they are perfectly natural, but while I can read your thoughts, because of the fact that you cannot reciprocate in this direction, I must use my voice to impress your mind. You will know more of this, however, at a future day, for it has been ordained that you are to be educated with an object that is now concealed. At present you are interested mainly in the affairs of life as you know them, and cannot enter into these purer spheres. We are approaching one of your former friends, and it may be your pleasure to ask him some questions, and to bid him farewell.